Right, morning everybody. I've got Jenny Legg here from Off Defib On, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what exactly that is and what you do. So
you.
I'll let you explain to myself, like I mean, obviously I've been to some of your talks and the rest of it, so I have a good idea of what you do, but talk to me like I'm a newbie, and for the audience as well. So
Yes, when I say to people that is the charity that I run, they look at me a bit confused to start off with, so I do often have to explain exactly what I'm talking about there. So we created the charity in October 2023. The name it's a bit like Ron Sill. It's exactly what it says it is. So bra off, defib on. So you're taking someone's bra off before you put a defibrillator on. So that's kind of the short version.
yeah,
You have to take the bra off before you put on a defibrillator because if you don't take it off, you can put the pads in the wrong place. And this is the problem that we have with females in particular. When you've got someone who's in cardiac arrest, someone's doing CPR, they're doing a really good job, they get to use the defib, they come down to the bra level and they panic and they don't take it off. And so we need them to remove it pads go where they're supposed to go. So that's the big problem with it.
So before the defib, the shocking machine, if people don't know what that is, clear and all that, you should have watched Casualty. You have to put pads on the skin. Is that so you don't get like a burn or something like that? Is that right?
So public access defibrillators, hopefully people have seen them all around the place. There's about we believe about 100,000 out there in the world. So homework is to see if you can spot your local ones, everybody.
Is there like an app for that or something? Or how do they...
that's a great question to ask. So the best place to find where your nearest defibrillator is from a website which is called defibfinder.uk. And that website is linked to the British Heart Foundation. The British Heart Foundation have a campaign called The Circuit, and The Circuit essentially is trying to get every defibrillator in the country registered so that ambulance services and bystanders know where to find the nearest defibrillator. And the website to access that information is defibfinder.uk.
Okay.
So if you're in a medical emergency, you need a defibrillator, you can ring your ambulance service and they will say to you, your nearest defibrillator is up the road, here's the code, go and grab it. You'll bring the defibrillator back to your casualty. And then what the defibrillator is going to do is it's got to analyse the heart rhythm of the person. So they have to know that they're in cardiac arrest, essentially. So the first 10 minutes when someone collapses, I'm generalising here, but roughly around the first 10 minutes when someone collapses in cardiac arrest, their heart is in a jelly-like state. So you can't, obviously you can't see me on the audio, but I'm kind of wiggling my hand around here. So your heart goes into a jelly-like state called ventricular fibrillation. So what the pads are going to do when you place the pads on somebody is to analyse those, is to work out, is that jelly-like state a rhythm that the defibrillator can shock?
Yeah.
So if it's in a shockable rhythm, what the pads are going to do is send an electric shock between the two pads to shock the heart, to get the heart to stop beating like a maniac in that jelly state, to essentially cause it to stop so it restarts itself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the short version of how it works. Yeah, turn your heart on and off again. Yeah, off and on again.
Yeah.
But the pads have to be in the right place for the shock to go through the heart. So if you put one too low, then that shock's going to bypass the heart and it's going to miss its target.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to be really clear on where the pads go. And unfortunately, a lot of the machines that we have out there, the information isn't very clear. So there's a lot to say about training. So we've got to make sure that people are trained properly and how to use it. Because if I just gave you a defibrillator today, not knowing anything about it, although you could just turn it on and follow its instructions, having not had the training, you're probably going to panic and you're probably going to make some mistakes, which is completely natural and normal. So the idea is that people are trained, know that it's really easy to do and know exactly where the pads go on your person. So that's kind of the idea.
So if I'm like Joe Public, which I probably do represent that person actually, because I've done very little first aid training apart from maybe when I worked at Sainsbury's, and you could get 50p an hour more if you were a first aid trained person, which was very basic out the back, but it probably ticked the box for them. So I go to the box on the wall, I get it off, and then inside there is the machine, the equipment, which hopefully most people would recognise anyway, because you probably watch something on the telly, and then some pads in the box. But they're like, is it instructions or something as to where to stick those pads, or how's that? I mean, I knew there were pads, and I thought they were to stop the burn rather than to assist the analysis of where to put the shock. So that's obviously new to me.
New information.
But yeah, I guess, is it on the box or something? Or how? I mean, like, if you could not panic at that moment in time, which would be quite difficult, there is instructions in those boxes.
So the public ones are very different to the ones that you have in the hospital. So if you've watched things like you were saying, Casualty, they have like crash carts. So they'll have loads of like high-tech equipment on those things with big pieces of machinery. So the public access ones are a really simplified version of that. So essentially you press an on button, or you just open it up and it will start talking to you. Right, so it will start saying to you, apply the pads to a bare chest is the first action that it asks you to do. So the pads are available. When you take the pads out, on the pads, the image shows you where those pads need to go. And so this is where there is a little bit of a grey area, because sometimes those images aren't that clear. And so when you're in that panic state, you're not necessarily going to go, am I putting them in the right place? So those pads then go on the bare skin. Yeah. Once they're on the bare skin, the machine is very clever, and it knows that it's been attached to a human, so it will start analysing the heart rhythm straight away. Right, okay. When it's analysing the heart rhythm, when you've got someone doing CPR, they have to stop. So the person doing CPR has to stop at that point, because otherwise it's going to pick up on their heart rhythm. And we don't want their heart rhythm picked up, because otherwise the machine's going to go, oh, well, we don't need to shock this person because they've got a normal heart rhythm, so it wouldn't shock them. So they have to stand clear, and then it will say, right, we believe that this heart needs shocking. So it's got a great big orange button. You know how much we love the colour orange. It's our favourite colour. It's a great big colour orange button with a big zigzag through it, lightning bolt through it, and you get to press that magic button, and the person will get shocked. And that's your reset button, essentially, for the heart. And then it tells you to go back to CPR while the heart decides what it's going to do. Because sometimes the heart will go, all right, I'm going to start beating again. And sometimes it will go, nah, not ready. Nah, and it will stay in cardiac arrest.
And that's when you get the kind of multiple
and that's when you have to do it again. So
okay.
Every 2 minutes you'll just redo it, and the machine does it for you. Once the pads are on, you leave them on, and the machine just says to you, right, stop again. We're going to reanalyse. Is the heart ready for a shock? No. Okay, let's go back to CPR, and you keep doing that until your ambulance crew arrive.
So I'm right in. So I got a better understanding of that, and hopefully other people will now have a slightly better understanding of it. So I'm guessing the problem which has born your charity is that the position of the pads, more so on a woman than a man, are involve taking their bra off or to get optimization of it. And I guess there's also the chance of like the metal bit in the bra conducting some electricity as well. But I guess there's I don't want to jump the gun, but you can tell me. I'm assuming that there's a psychological battle going on, because I can tell you I probably wouldn't feel that comfortable leaning around someone's back undoing their bra in the middle of a street, getting their lady parts out.
Their lady parts.
Yeah, their tits out.
Getting their tits out.
And giving them a shock in the middle of the public. I would struggle with that. I think most people probably would. Well, I'd like to think so anyway.
And I think that is the biggest barrier that we have, which is why we have to normalise it. When I talk to people about this, I say, you know, when you go in for a prostate exam, when you go and see your doctor, you have an expectation of what that's like. You kind of like, you're potentially going to be a bit violated, or it's not going to be very comfortable. It's going to be a bit awkward, but you understand that process. You understand that that's the thing that's going to happen, and you go along and it just happens, and everything's fine, and it's all medical, and it needs to be done. So when you have this kind of emergency, We want it to be the same thing. We want it just to be normalised. It's standard practice. That's just what happens if you've got somebody who is needing a defibrillator on, and we have to expose their chest. So it's just normal behaviour. Because so many people don't know about it is number one. It's not in training at the moment. It's not a standard part of first aid, which is one of our elements of our campaign, is to influence the awarding bodies, to influence the Resuscitation Council, to just include it in the training. So at least our first aiders know what to do if they're in that situation. And then we have people like you, Matt, who are Joe Public, people out there that never done first aid. The defibs just happens to be there in front of them. They're in this chaotic situation, and then you have to take someone's bra off. It's chaos. So
because there's a big, like, with the prostate check, obviously there's an element of trust because they're a doctor and they went through training.
And, and you've got consent from your
as
patient.
Well. I've arrived and I'm happy. Well, I won't say happy, but I'm willing for you to do this as opposed to this scenario.
Because you're giving consent to the doctor, whereas our scenario is you assume that you're getting consent from that person.
Yeah.
So I would recommend to just speak to every woman about this. And I don't think I have met a woman that said they'd rather be dead than have their breasts exposed. Yes. So you're looking at someone dying versus exposing their chest. Yeah. So you're going to choose exposure. There was a bit of research done at the end of last year where they interviewed a members of the public, and I think it was something like 2/3 of the public said they would really struggle with it, and that is because of that exposure. We're taught not to expose people's chests or females' chests. Don't you have your breasts out? As females, we're told not to do that. It's a bit of a taboo. But we do have to in this situation. Yeah. The way we do it is defibrillators will have scissors in them. So we wouldn't have to go around the back. We can just cut up the side of the bra because you've got someone doing CPR. So up the side of the bra, across the strap, and then you just flop it over them, flop them out. Yeah. We say, get your tits out for the pads. Yeah. That's our motto. Get them out. You can then, once the pads are on, you can then place something over the top. So as long as there's no metal in it, so a piece of material you can place over the top. So once
if
the
you're
pads
in like the
are,
middle of a supermarket or something, you might want to do that. But I guess it's the scissors probably normalise it a little bit, actually, don't they? Because the leaning round the back thing, trying to undo the bra, I'd struggle with that. I reckon, because that feels a little bit like too much. But cutting it, I feel like that's like they've put the scissors in there for that event, so that's probably quite a good help. Do you think? You mentioned about it being taboo. Do you think it's more of a problem here in the UK than it is abroad? We're quite taboo in the UK, aren't we, about this sort of thing?
I think we're probably further forward than a lot of other countries. Yeah. Europe generally are, all right with it.
They're all right, they're all right with it.
Yeah, well, France and Italy, it's kind of their culture is a little bit different. So, but the understanding is still the same. Like in first aid, they're not talking about it, so it is kind of relatively new in that regard in trying to get the information out there. In America, there's an amazing campaign being run in America called Heart Charged, which is exactly the same as the campaign we're running here, and they're actually at a level where they're talking to Congress, so they're really pushing it in the States. So I believe they are further ahead in that regard. But if you think about Middle Eastern countries, they're going to be in a very different place to where we are because the culture is hugely different. Somewhere like Australia, I would say they're probably ahead of us as well. They're always a little bit ahead of us medically in these sorts of spaces. So we've been doing lots of research into this, and one of the things, male-female this is, rather than kind of from a religious perspective, is males are more likely to have CPR started on them before the telephone call is made. So if you and I collapsed here today and it was just Luke that was available, he would probably start CPR on you and the phone call being made at the same time. Whereas for me, the phone call will be made first, and then they would say, you've got it, and then they would have to guide you and say to you, please start CPR on that female. The difference is about 27%. So it's a big difference. So we're losing quite a lot of people in that gap. So if you wait 2 or 3 minutes, that's when you're losing your person, because you want to start CPR as soon as possible.
I think it is, I mean, the whole point of your charity is to raise awareness of it, but it is inherently difficult when you grow up in that society of like consent first and like, you know, real like you can't do stuff and the rest of it, and it's low stigma and stuff like that, isn't it? Like you kind of get thrust upon that sort of ethos, if you like, as you grow up. And then you're presented with this medical emergency, and it's like I would be like that. I'm torn between like I want to do what is the right thing to do here, but I'm also wary of like Susan or Karen. Let's say Karen. I feel like the name Karen's got hammered lately. It was like really normal up until about 2 years.
And I've got a really good friend called Karen, and she's not a Karen at all.
But you got the Karen, if you like, over there being like, "What are you doing that for? You don't need to do that. Just pull it down a bit or something." And you'd be like, "I don't know what I'm doing. You want to go? You want to do it?" You know, that's probably what would go through most people's heads, I think, at that moment. So, yeah. So I think that's really good. So thanks for the nice sort of overview on it. But this isn't the only thing that you do, is it? You've got some other things up your sleeves?
So this is obviously a charity that I run, and I, like I said earlier, I set it up in the end of October with 6 amazing trustees. I must add, they're absolutely amazing. But I also run my own first aid training business, which is where the charity kind of stemmed from. So I run Training Legs First Aid. Our caption is creating everyday life-saving heroes. And I do first aid in physical first aid, but also in mental health first aid. So there's kind of 2 parts to that.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that. I've been delivering training since 2010. So I've been training for a long time, but I set up Training Legs First Aid, you'll love this, in December 2019. So a great time of year, in hindsight, to do predominantly face-to-face training.
Well, it's better than the last podcast guest we had on. They decided to give up their job and start their business in February 2020.
Beat them by just 2 months there, just 2 months. So I've been doing a lot of freelance up until that point. So prior to setting up Training Legs First Aid, I was doing loads and loads of freelance work, so just kind of going out there. I'd worked for a homeless charity for 10 years, St Mungo's, they won't mind me saying that. And while I was working there, I was delivering their first aid training. So I was already delivering the training. I was part of the health and safety kind of strategy to make sure first aid was across the board in their charity. And I had a lot going on in my personal life. I had young children. My husband's a police officer, and so he was doing a lot of shift work. And we had Matt's brother was very, very poorly at that time. So there was a lot going on personally. So I took a sabbatical from work. And I was like, look, I'm just going to take a sabbatical and do loads of freelance, just as and when I can. And then the rest of the time I'm going to support the family going through what we were going through. And then from there, that's when my business just kind of stemmed from that. I was like, well, I can just do this on my own. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's kind of how Training Legs was created. And then through COVID, although we weren't doing a lot of physical training, what it meant was that I was able to do like strategic stuff. So I was working with some other charities on their volunteer development and talking to their volunteers and checking that they were able to do what they were going to do. So I was able to do other parts of the work. And then I'd say probably 2022, it kind of started kicking off again. And I think that's probably when we first met. I was around then because I started stumbling across the Brighton network scene and starting to meet people, and it's snowballed. So even though it's been going since 2019, I still like to think it's only really been going for 2 or 3 years, really.
Trading since 2019, but really kicking off since 2022. And how's that kind of growth been since that point, really? I mean, obviously hard in the pandemic, but obviously health and safety and the rest of it was, some people did very well out of those kind of things. You know, anybody that did COVID screens probably did a roaring trade. Or could turn their hand to doing it anyway. So how's that kind of grown since 2022 then?
So as you know, and I'm sure all your other guests have said, it's hard work. It's a slog, isn't it? You're spending your evenings replying to emails and doing all your admin, and then during the day you're doing your training. And I'm very lucky that my husband's job role has changed, so he's not frontline working anymore. So he's able to support what I do a lot more than if he was having to go on shifts. Because when you're a police officer, if you've arrested somebody, you're probably there for like 4 hours before you can come home. So often it'd be like, I don't know when you're coming home. So now we're not in that position. He's working in a different space. It's more 9 to 5 role. Means then I have the luxury of being able to go out when I can to do my training. So that's a really big help. Having young children is obviously another element to it. One of my boundaries that I wanted to set myself was that I didn't work weekends. So when I first started, I was doing a lot of my training at weekends because I was doing a lot with nurseries. And nurseries don't like to, well, they can't close for the day, so they have to do their training on a Saturday. So I was doing a lot to begin with nurseries and sort of not school environments, but after school clubs and places like that. Okay. And then, I've it's just sort of grown. This year is probably the first year since April, so last few months, where I can actually sit back and go, I am full. Yeah. So I'm fully booked. So from April all the way up till September, me personally delivering training, I have no capacity. Yeah. So I'm really proud of that. It's taken obviously a really long time to get to that point.
That's good. It's a good milestone, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'm kind of quite chuffed that I now can ask other people to do some of the courses that are sort of refresher courses and things like that.
Okay, cool. Right, well, I think that neatly brings us on to kind of what your plans are and things like that and so on. So, we'll move on to your questionnaire and all that kind of stuff.
My goodness, okay.
And have a quick scan over that. So, right, so I think we'll talk a little bit about kind of your next kind of 1, 3, 10-year type plans on these various businesses. But I mean, presumably we can flip between the two things, or we can focus on maybe the training side of things, because that's like kind of your business as opposed to the charity, if you like. But we asked the question, what do you think you built yourself a business or a job at the moment? I mean, to summarise the answer, kind of more of a job at the moment, and then obviously you're hoping potentially to build more of a business so you can work on it and not in it so much, time versus work and all that kind of stuff. But the first question is what are your goals for the business in about a year's time? And you've put down here to be able to offer the training to freelance trainers and work on the business and not in the business, working networks and connections. So talk to me a bit about that.
I just like going to networking, I think. Yeah. I think I'd just rather do that than deliver the training. Just like meeting people. No, of course I enjoy doing the training as well. So I just like to have a much better balance. So at the moment it's very training heavy. So 3 days a week I'm delivering the training, which obviously I really love. But, a little bit of wear and tear as I get older, a little bit more fatigue. And I think to be a business owner, I should be working on it more rather than in it. So my objectives for this year are to spread the work out a little bit more. So I've got some freelancers that I do use who are excellent and very good and very professional, and also have some retainer contracts in place. So with St Mungo's, the company I used to work for, charity I used to work for, I have a retainer contract with them. So 2 or 3 days a month I'll go to London and I'll deliver their training. So I know each month I've got that work coming in, whereas the rest of the work's very ad hoc. So it's very much feast or famine. So there are some months, like August, for example, it's like a ghost town. You've got your tumbleweed going through the desert kind of thing. No one wants to train in August, which is absolutely fine. And every first aid trainer will say that to you. So you kind of have this sort of lull. And then in September, you're so busy that you can't see the inside of your eyes. It's absolutely crazy. So it'd be really good to have like a bit more stability in knowing what's kind of coming in each month and what's going out. So financially that's really useful, and then you can plan a lot better and be able to then have a better better strategy going forward. So that is my ideal. So having, I just need 3 retainers. That's all I want.
Yeah.
So if anyone needs retainer work, then come to me.
So talk to me about retainer then, because I do like the kind of trying to smooth out the peaks and troughs, if you like. And a lot of businesses are like that. They have their 20 clients, and then every single month they have to start again and fight for the money every single month.
Yeah.
Retainers, direct debits, subscription services, all that kind of stuff does ease all of that. So what does retainer mean to you then? So you have your kind of your normal course where you go and say, you train some of my staff and they would know what to do in the event of an emergency, and that might be an annual thing to do. But what would be a retainer? What would that look like?
Yeah, so because with first aid at work courses, you have to refresh every 3 years, or redo the qualification every 3 years. So every 3 years, your team would come back and redo the qualification. So I'll use St Mungo's as my example. So they have 2,000 staff. Their policy is every single staff member is trained in first aid. So we're just basically going through all the staff members, and then we'll start again. It's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, isn't it? As soon as you finish painting it, you're going to start again, because there's so many staff members.
Over 3 years, Okay.
And because their policy is everyone's trained. So there's a few organisations out there that will have that, and I certainly places like care homes that have high turnovers of staff. They have to have first aid people in the place, because obviously the nature of their workplace. So just having 2 or 3 of those would mean then we know we've got that amount coming in. So then when you come in with your course that you need every 3 years, we're able to do that, and we've got capacity to do both.
What about things like health and safety and stuff like that? Could you bolt those on? Because I know, like our business, for instance, we would do the first aid training, whatever it is. I don't know. I feel like ours is annual, but maybe that's something else. It's whatever it is, every 3 years or something. But the health and safety people, we pay them like a retainer, and they basically just advise us, and they come around every now and then and make sure that we've kind of done all the things we're supposed to have done. And then a member of staff is in charge of making sure those things get done before the next time they come and visit. So that strikes me like quite a good retainer model. If you could freelance that bit out or whatever and bolt that onto your services, so you could sort of say, look, it's a 3-year contract. We'll do all the first aid training, but also the health and safety for your business, kind of all rolled into one thing. Would that be something?
So I love that idea. So what I do is I bolt into someone else's business.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of businesses that do the health and safety and the HR side of stuff, and then I do the compliance training, which is the first aid training. So at the moment I'm doing it the other way round. That's just because my area of expertise isn't in health and safety. If someone like you came to me and said, this is the package we're looking for, I would refer you to someone that I work with who I would recommend. So that's kind of how I do it at the moment. I just think it's because health and safety is really dull, isn't it? Maybe that's really why.
Quick question.
It's interesting. It is really interesting, but I think when we talk about it in training, because obviously in first aid you have to talk about the health and safety regulations and why first aid is included. So it is mandatory that you have first aiders in every workplace in the country, even if you're self-employed, you still have to have provision in place. If you've got more than 5 members of staff, you have to have a first aider.
Yeah.
So because it's mandatory, it does kind of blow my mind a little bit that I get people going, oh, we haven't done training ever, or maybe in the last 10 years, and you think, gosh, this is actually a regulation set by the health and safety executive that you have first aiders in your workplace. So it's a bit scary. I think it's something like about 10% of people in this country are first aid trained.
Yes, not very many, no.
Yeah, should be more.
With just coming back to the setup with the kind of health and safety and obviously the training, and you're bolting onto someone else's business. I don't know what that contract looks like for you, but is there I mean, a danger that if, they met another Jenny somewhere else, they could be like, well, we're going to deal with them now and sort of bin you off, so to speak. It just strikes me like it's always good to have the power in your hands. So like if they're signed up for a 3-year contract, they're not, that person that's doing that and then using your services is not necessarily going to sign you up for 3 years because they've got their 3-year contract. They're going to dip in and out of you. So it's not guaranteed to smooth out the peaks and troughs so much as if you were doing it around the other way and they were bolting onto you. The power's back in your hands where you're saying the contract's for me. I can pick and choose the health and safety people, whoever I like, if I fall out with them or they're not doing a good job or whatever it might be. Or let's say they're just, they're really good, but they retire and you've got to replace them with somebody else. But actually the 3-year contract's with you, so you've got that security as opposed to around the other way. Is that a sort of good synopsis of where you're at the moment?
Yeah, and that's a really good point, and that is a risk, and that is something that could happen. So we're very lucky, excuse me, in our first aid community. So there's something called the Horsham First Aid Collective, which we've set up. So there's 3 of us. There's myself, a lady called Sian and a lady called Heather.
For anybody that doesn't know, Horsham's a local town to Brighton.
It's not too far away from us. It's only like half
if
an
you're
hour
watching
from
in
where
Scotland.
we are. Yeah, it's very close to us.
It's not just a made-up name.
Good point, thank you. Yeah, not too far away. So lovely little kind of market town. So we're all first aid trainers. We're all doing exactly the same thing. So in theory, we should be in competition with each other. Yeah. But actually, there's a whole group of us, and there's probably about 50 of us now, that all work collaboratively. So Sian, Heather and I, what we've done is we've created something called the FAF group. So bear with me, right? FAF stands for First Aid Facilitators Forum. So twice a year, we get all the local first aid trainers together. Yeah. We share best practice, we share updates, and we learn from each other. So we have a whole day where people showcase their training. We have charities come in and talk about charities that are important to first aid. We have people bringing in products to just show us what's going on. So we're basically trying to keep our enemies close, maybe is what some people might say, but that's not what it's like at all. But we're all working collaboratively. So the reason why I bring that up is because Heather and I were in a situation not that long ago where I was doing some work with somebody and she had previously been doing work with them. I had no idea about it. And it was only when she mentioned them in a conversation we had, and I said, well, I've just started working with this company. She said, oh, I've been emailing them trying to get back in. And so I'm like, oh, this is a bit awkward, because obviously you had the original agreement with one owner, and I had an agreement with this new partner that had come in. So they both still worked there, but the previous owner just hadn't got back to Heather, and I was obviously communicating with this new person. And so then Heather and I then came to an agreement together where we both made, it worked out for us both in business. So I delivered the training and she did the admin. That's kind of how we worked it out. So we're very lucky that we are a very supportive community, and we talk to each other, and we're really nosy, and I like to find out what other people are up to. And if someone's in a school already, I'm not going to go to that school and then access that school, because that's for them, and and they would do the same. It's a very respectful group that we have. So it kind of is a long version of answering your question about health and safety. And obviously we have health and safety specialists in that group as well.
I think it would just be good for you to try and be the person at the top rather than being the feeder, essentially. It just strikes me like we've had similar arrangements where we're kind of we are the outsourced company, and of course then all of a sudden they decide not to use you for some reason. You're like, I just thought I'd ironed out all the peaks and troughs,
right? And
they told me they had a 10-year contract, but they've got rid of us. And then you look in your own contract and you're only signed up for a year. The fact they're signed up for 10 years or 3 years or whatever it might be is not relevant, because obviously they've signed us for a shorter period, so they've switched to somebody else because it's probably cheaper or something or whatever. So that person they've got the golden ticket, haven't they? They've got the 10-year contract or the 3-year contract, and then they can pick and choose. So if you could maybe change the model a little bit, so you were the one with the golden ticket, the 3-year contract, then not necessarily you might pick and choose, you might be perfectly happy and the rest of it, but you know that contract is yours, and therefore that's security for the next 3 years.
Yeah, and then you'll know what you're getting each month.
Yeah, as opposed to never knowing if that person's going to feed that stuff to you. Because you'll put a markup on some of the health and safety stuff, so even if they're not using necessarily your core services, then at least you're getting a small drip feed out of, if you put a 10% margin on it or something like that, or whatever you might do. That's some money coming in without you having to fight for it every single month or start again, essentially.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So ask me again in a year.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, this is what I've done.
I think that if you had enough of those, that leads to the working on the business, not in the business, because you're not having to go and fight for it every month. It becomes like an administration task then, doesn't it? Which, again, you would outsource. But you can be like, right, I'm managing the relationships with these people working on the business, not in it, delivering the training then. And again, like with the freelancers and stuff, they're really good, but those contracts need to be like quite watertight. So then you fall out one and they go, I'm not delivering your training anymore. Like we try here, we've got a cleaning business, and that's full of people that are self-employed, people looking for part-time school hour works, all that kind of stuff. And it's terrible for people just going, I don't want to do it anymore. And then they leave and then they come. So we've tried to really steer away from that and try and grow the business to a point where everybody's a pay-way employee, they get a pension, they get put their big boy pants on, if you like, rather than just being a kind of focused of a firm full of like self-employed people that are, you don't have any control over them because there's no contract in place. Obviously you can't stop someone just walking off physically, you can't go and pick them up and bring them back, but
it's incentivizing them to stay, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And generally speaking, the people that want like kind of part-time round school hours and the rest of it, they want the cash in hand and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really suit a business if you're trying to scale it up a little bit. It's all right if you just want a little bit of pocket money or something, but we're not in that market to compete with that, and we never will compete with that because people are probably prepared to earn less than minimum wage because they might not be declaring it properly, and it's a completely messy arrangement. I'm not saying that that's here, but if you grow your business to a point where you're employing these people, which I think is your kind of 3-year plan, then you're in more control over them, so you don't get these kind of peaks and troughs with staffing issues and like having to have so many different contracts for freelancers and stuff like that, like ones that go, well, I only want to give a month's notice, well, I'm happy for 3 years, so it gets quite administratively heavy to keep on top of otherwise.
Our industry is a really weird industry because there's loads of first aid businesses like mine, where it's kind of one person band, and we all just hire in freelancers. So that's kind of the culture of the industry. There are some places, so let's use St John's for example, because they deliver first aid training. They have a PAY contract with their trainers. So their trainers are guaranteed 3 days a week training. If they're not training, they're still being paid because, that's the contract, that's the arrangement. That's a big fish. It's a very big fish. So I would say I'm a little fish, medium, maybe approaching a medium-sized fish. But it's a really interesting industry. Also, a lot of the people that I know that are first aid trainers also have other jobs. So there's not a lot of us that do this full time. Lots of them are also paramedics or training to be nurses, or they're doing something else. And there's also a lot of cabin crew. So 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So they obviously have a very high level of knowledge of first aid. They're excellent people pleasers, so they're often first aid trainers as well. And so, but it kind of supplements their income. So there's not many of us that actually just do it as a full-time job. It's a really weird one. We don't actually sit, when I was trying to register my company, we don't sit under any of the standard brackets that the government give you. So we're this weird anomaly.
The CIS code.
We don't really. Everyone just picks a different one. I'm like, there's no standard to follow.
Okay.
I don't know why I said that, but there we go.
I've come across industries like that before, and I would generally say there's probably a handful of people out there that either do it full-time or part-time, but they fall into it and they're kind of burnt out by the whole like fighting for it every single month. Even if it was a second job or whatever, it's quite complicated. So you might be surprised as you go along that some of those conversations where you think people are quite happy with it and they're like, do you know what, I'd just rather if I swap it for a paycheck any day because it's guaranteed money coming in every single month, even though I'll probably earn less, but it's guaranteed because I'm PAYE, as opposed to like having to fight for it, collect arrears, deal with emails in the evening, all that kind of stuff. So you should find people that will do that. It'd be surprising because you don't know what goes on in the inner mind of somebody, and then you think on the outside they're perfectly happy, and then you go, I'm thinking about taking someone on. Do you know anyone that's in? And I'd be interested in that. I can't bloody stand sending emails at 10 o'clock at night and doing quotes and then arguing with someone because I didn't give good training or missed something out and they won't pay my invoice. You know, there'll be those people that get burnt out by that. The average business doesn't last much longer than like 2 or 3 years before people get burnt out by it. Yeah. To get to your 10-year anniversary, you've done like pretty well. A lot of businesses fail after about 18 months because people just lose steam, and you know, it is hard. You've got to be focused and work for very little money. I mean, if you add up all your time that you spend that isn't there, you probably might be finding that it's not far off minimum wage to start with.
I mean, you're absolutely right. And every September, I say to my husband, I'm not doing this anymore. Can't do it. It's not worth it. Yeah. I get so stressed out because I've not worked through August because, first of all, I'm working with my children. So that's a choice that I've made, you know, boundary I've set myself. In the summer holidays, I'm with my children. Yeah. But then in September, I don't have any money because I haven't worked in August. And so in September, I then have a massive panic and go, oh, well, I can't do this. I'm obviously doing a really bad job. I'm not going to do it anymore. Yeah. So I'm now really mindful that I say that every year. My husband says it to me in September. You're going to say that you want to suck it all in. So you're absolutely right. And that peaks and troughs thing that we were talking about has a big impact on that kind of, you know, keep going. Just try for another year and see.
Because if you had that retainers in and those PAYE staff and the rest of it, and it was kind of smoothed out, August wouldn't really be a thing anymore, would it? Because you wouldn't have that kind of cliff edge drop and then back to the busy period of September. So I think, I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and say that, but I think that if you've got the energy and the drive, that's the key to kind of getting to a point where you can kind of work on the business, not in it. You need to get away from the kind of self-employed, freelancey kind of size, if you like, and get up to the next stage. You'll also set yourself apart from that, because there are a lot of businesses that will probably want to know that it isn't just the Jenny show. Like, if you give us all this information, this is brilliant, and you get hit by a bus, where do we go now?
Exactly.
We need to know that it isn't just you. You know, a certain size of business would, you know, if we're not massively reliant upon health and safety and the rest here, but if you were like a building firm or somebody that had a remit to be quite reliant upon it, that sort of business would probably not want to deal with just a one-man band, because it's very risky, you know, from a kind of compliancy internally. It's nice to know that there's some backup, like if you get poorly, go on holiday, you're not available. Well, you might not be available, but that's when we've programmed all our staff in to be available. So can you provide someone? And then that's when a bigger business is better place to step in. So. Yeah,
and we definitely miss out on bigger contracts, you know, like government contracts and council contracts, because we are, you know, we probably could have, I do have capacity, but they want someone that has that set up already, that kind of medium business. How we run it at the moment, so if I'm sick, so for, you know, everyone gets ill, we help each other. So that community, you know, we've got a WhatsApp group, so we send a text going, I've just been throwing up all night, can someone cover this day for me? And someone will go, absolutely fine. You pay them for the day, they're not doing it for nothing, you pay them for it. But we have got that's a very short-term solution to a long-term problem. But the other thing that I did this year, so at the beginning of this year, is I have introduced, she's my communications manager. So she's a lady called Alyssa. Okay. I met her through Lindsay Clay. from Connected 100. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
And she's now taking on a lot of those responsibilities. So how you're saying about the admins at night time and doing all the kind of the contracting stuff.
So you've outsourced the admin to like a VA or something?
She's a bit more than a VA. So we coined the term communications manager because she obviously is building relationships with the clients and warming up leads for me. So if I'm meeting people at networking, she's kind of warming them up, following them up, communicating with them, getting bookings booked in, getting meetings booked in. Yeah. But I can say, hand on heart, that she's been just phenomenal. It's fantastic to have, because I know that at least twice a week I've got someone else looking at my emails. Yes. So although I'm still doing some of that stuff, I know that if I can't do it, I don't have to.
So that's like the first steps, I guess, in that direction, isn't it? Getting someone to do accountancy and admin. Those are the normal first two steps, whether you outsource it or employ people. That depends on the cash flow and various decisions. But I think the quicker you can kind of get those models in place that protect you from the peaks and troughs, then those people will probably become employees eventually, because you'll go... Because your lady that does the VA type, I know it's not VA, but that sort of role, like a virtual assistant, essentially, because she's not employed by you, they'll have other clients, and you'll outgrow them eventually. You'll get to a point where you're like, I need more hours out of you, and then there'll be a break-even point. Generally speaking, I don't know how they work, but we have a business that does that model for people, and we find that they leave at about 30 hours a month. So when they need us for more than 30 hours, that's when they say, I might as well employ someone, because the costs are broadly the same. I can get someone part-time for the same amount of money that I'm paying you for 30 hours a month. Because obviously their rate's higher than the rate you would, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it, would they? So they've got to make money out of it.
She's not allowed to leave me, by the way. I won't let her. Don't leave me.
Well, no, it's more you. So you'll get to a point where you'll say, I need this, and you'll go, right, I'm paying you £1,200 a month now. I can actually employ someone part-time for that.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. So the balance then
the balance for you
the other way.
Comes in at about 30 hours.
Yeah, okay.
Plus, they might not be able to offer you those 30 hours anyway. You say, like, I'd like more hours, and I'm happy to pay for them. And they go, well, I've got 9 other clients to service, because obviously I've got to make it into a full-time job. So I can't, unless I employ someone, I can't service your contract, and I can't employ someone just for 10 hours. So those VA businesses are quite hard to upscale. So they have lots and lots of single self-employed people, and then the next league up is like one with a few employees, really.
Right.
It's a very similar kind of model, you know.
Okay,
you can
so
only
I'm kind of approaching that stage then, aren't I?
Possibly.
Guess, in the next couple of years, maybe.
You might find yourself in a position where that person needs to become part of your team rather than like outsourced, but you'll have to monitor that. And it's the same with bookkeeping and accountancy. A lot of business owners do that, and then they end up paying their accountant to sort out their mess because they don't really know what they're doing. They think they do. And employing a good bookkeeper can be outsourced, and then eventually you'll have them in-house doing that for you. So that's part of like stabilising your team, if you like, around you, because those two people are non-fee earners, generally speaking, so they're quite a big commitment for most businesses. But if they're holding it all together and allowing you to work on the business, not in it, and that's the goal, then that's what you need to get to, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on my way there. I mean, learning so much, like, you know, just even talking to you today, I've learned so much about, you know, what those next steps look like, and that kind of interim bit that I'm in, because I'm relatively comfortable with what I'm doing at the moment, but to just push it to a point where I'm not doing all the admin-y stuff and the accounting's done with someone who knows what they're doing.
It's that difficult thing, because I get a lot of people who are one-man bands, self-employed or whatever, and they're comfortable where they are, but they strive for this thing over here, but they're not sure how to get there, and it's quite a big leap from here to there, and a lot of commitment as well. But if they can get there, I think that sets them apart, and effectively you put like a bit of a moat around you, because you're not that small person anymore, and those bigger firms will deal with you, the council and so on. I know they like their ISO 9001 accreditation and all that
so
kind of stuff, but you can then start looking at some of those things as a strategy and going, look, I'm going to go into more local government stuff and get those contracts because they've got a remit to do a certain amount and spend a certain amount of money on these campaigns and do these things with the staff. And then you can focus your business on that because you've got the time. You're not the one delivering the training necessarily.
I'm the one at the networking event.
Yeah, exactly. eating a nice lunch.
Having a nice lunch with Chris Mansfield.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like if that's the goal, that's where you kind of have to figure out that path. I think of doing that and steering away from freelance, getting people employed in the business, trying to iron out the peaks and troughs and stuff like that, and make sure you always hold the golden ticket as well. You're the one with the big contract, not servicing someone that's got it.
I think it's I would say that's a confidence thing, isn't it? It's like knowing that that's the right move to make, because being relatively new to business, I'd not even really thought of that. It's only you saying it today where I'm thinking, actually, that's probably that's a more sensible, business-minded way to do things. I'm always told that I am too generous and too nice. You know, like if someone's trying to negotiate a price, I'll always give a price that is potentially detrimental to me. Like I've done training where I've lost money in the past because I've just gone, oh yeah, you know, well, you're a charity and I feel bad, and okay, I'll give you a really cheap rate. But then and I think you said earlier, work out your hourly rate and work out, you know, actually how many hours have you spent on that. You do the day's training, but actually there's probably a whole day's worth of admin in getting the contract, doing all the follow-up, the evaluation, getting the certifications all done. There's a lot of paperwork with first aid. So you forget about the hours that you're doing. It's not a training hours. And everybody else does too. They think, oh, I'm paying her for this training, that's really expensive. But actually there's qualifications attached to that, there's equipment attached to that. There's a lot to it. So it's kind of, I need to be more focused and set better boundaries with finances. A good friend of mine said to me, have your prices on your website, which is what I have done now. So I've got a brand new website. It's all very exciting. And my prices are on there. So if anybody asks me, I can just go, here's the link on my website, here's the price. And then that is the price. Because if I was working for you and you said to me, that's the price of something, you know, you'd be really peed off with me if I said, they were a charity, so I gave it to them for like 500 quid. You'd be like, well, hang on, that's not the price. There's a reason why
I've got to pay you £600 to do it.
And there's a reason why it's X amount. You know, that's something that Alyssa did with me, my communications manager, is that we sat down and we went, oh crap, we've really been underselling ourselves. Let's put it at a price where we're actually going to make some money out of this rather than just breaking even each other, you know. I mean, that's just madness. So, so there's an element on my part to be a better, more savvy business professional, I think, in that regard.
I think something that would really help you that springs to mind is there's a piece of software called Clockify, and there's probably loads of different bits of software, but what that does is it tracks the hours you're spending on something. You have to input some data into it, but we use it a lot here where people say to us, like at Charles Cox for instance, they say, oh, can you read a lease, give us some advice on some dispute on it or something like that, like there's a dispute about a pet or something and you can't have pets in this block of flats, and they want like a written report. What we do is generally use Clockify, so we'll start it, but it's like all emails, telephone calls, anytime you spend anything on it at all gets logged on Clockify and the detail put in, so like the clock's always running essentially. And then at the end we look at it and we take a view and go, oh, like those 5 telephone calls, they're only like 2 minutes long, and you know, one of them was born of me asking a question anyway, so you might take a view and remove some of the time. But if you asked a member of staff here, we did this exercise and said, tell me how long you're going to spend reading this lease and giving advice. They all pretty much come back going, I don't know, hour, maybe just over an hour or something like that. And then when they use Clockify, they were spending nearly 3 hours doing it overall. Wow. Because what happens is they'll get the lease out. First of all, the lease isn't, well, it's like an old-fashioned written with a quail pen. So now they have to use a piece of software to convert it into something that's like legible. Then they read the lease and then they make notes on it. They're even using like ChatGPT and AI to assist with it as well to speed up the process. Then when they give the advice to the client comes back querying some of it, and then there's a bit of back and forth and a few phone calls, and then everyone's happy, and then the stuff is finalised and printed out. What they've thought of is it's reading the lease and writing the letter. That's it. They've forgotten about all the other stuff and the prelims and the bits afterwards. So when they used it, most of them thought they were spending an hour, but they were spending about 2 hours, 25 minutes, something like that in that region. Nearly, some were spending up to 3 hours doing the same task, of which they would have probably quoted an hour's work for.
Wow, gosh.
And if you do the same and you say, from the phone call comes in, okay, you can't charge the client for inquiring, but that is part of your job. It's free money. You're not earning anything out of it. And then you put the quotation together. They might have some questions on the quote, and then they accept it. Then you've got to book it in, and that can be palaver sometimes, booking it in. Then you do the training course. There's costs associated to the training course, travel, parking. And then you bill, and then you have to chase them twice because they don't pay. And then they might have a query on your invoice because you've written it out to the wrong company or something or other. So you get all of that together and you go, right, I charge 500 quid, but the amount of time I took on it means that I've earned £14.20 an hour. So that I either need to get better at not being dragged into all that kind of stuff and automate it, or I need to be looking at my pricing.
Yeah.
And I think bits of software like Clockify really do help people.
I'm not sure I want to do it. Everything you've just said there, I was like, that's so true.
Yeah.
And when you're like dates in particular, you can spend days going backwards and forwards with somebody on dates. So, oh my goodness.
Or bet you've turned up and then it's not been the right day or something, or the staff have not there or whatever, and then you've had to rebook.
Or they rebook, because we have obviously a cancellation policy. Yeah. But if it's between 28 and 14 days, then they have the opportunity to move the date.
Yeah.
So then you have a day that you're not doing the training now, and you're moving it to a new date. So then essentially it's 3 days then, isn't it? You just
because you have this procurement thing. So I don't know how your model works, but I say to you, can I have training on the 1st of August, and then on and then on the 3rd of July, I say we can't make that anymore. I'm going to move it to September now. When do you get paid in that scenario? Do you get paid after the training?
So I invoice them at a point of booking.
Yeah.
So you get invoiced prior to do it. So they should be paying me prior to the course date. Invoice date is usually the course date.
Right, okay.
So it would be the day of the course.
Yeah.
But
I think I should
move
would my
it.
one be the 1st of August, no matter the fact I moved it then? Or would you then move the invoice date to the...
I'd still probably make you pay by the 1st of August because you'd moved it,
and
then I would...
I'd be doing that.
No offence to anyone, but I wouldn't trust that you then would keep your word.
Well, you keep
moved it.
Yeah.
And that happened to me recently where they moved it twice. And I was, the second time I was a bit peeved because I was like, well, now that's 3 days that I've spent on this one-day training rather than the...
But that's the sort of stuff, I guess, you kind of draw on and learn. Of like, they've moved it once, and maybe I need a policy in there to say you get one free booking. After that, there's a £50 admin charge for rebooking, because you can't have your whole life dictated by that business owner or something that's a bit disorganised and keeps rebooking it.
Yeah, and keeps pushing it back.
Yeah, because if you take my example, I'd have paid you on the 1st of August, and then I'm like in credit, and I keep moving it, and then all of a sudden the training's in February. And that's really inconvenient for you, presumably, because you don't want to keep booking it every single month and then keep moving it because I can't get my act together.
No, I would just keep your money.
Yeah. Yes, but you've eventually got to deliver the course.
But you've got to do
February.
it because you've paid. Yeah,
so actually, the however many months that is, I can't do the maths, but say 6 months worth of me rebooking it is chewing into your Clockify hours, isn't it? Because every single time you have to rebook it and reorganise it, that's another 40 minutes wasted.
Yeah.
So then you look at it in February and go, do you know what, I lost money on that course because I had to rebook it so many times. So I think those sort of tools will help you then be like, right, in my contract, you get one free rebook. And then after that, there's a £50 admin fee every time you rebook.
Every time you rebook it.
Like, for example, you need to analyse those things, but then that protects you against those sort of things, doesn't it? So, and it makes it clear, it's fair. You get one free rebook.
That's fair, isn't it?
And then there's an admin fee. Otherwise, I could be here forever.
Yeah. God, I'm exhausted just by what you've said.
I know.
And also,
but all that stuff leads you to being a bigger business and making you much more kind of commercially minded
and more robust as a business,
exactly.
isn't it? Because I remember it was last year, I did the training in January, and it wasn't until the November I realised that they hadn't paid me. I was like, that's a really long time to not know about a fair chunk of money. And I was a bit embarrassed, because then I had to go back to them and go, you haven't actually paid me for this job. I'd done 3 or 4 sessions with them, and there was a bit of confusion. So, it wasn't like an easy, transaction in the first place. But I remember just going, I'm really sorry, but you do actually owe me £1,000. Can I have that money? And I'm really embarrassed that I hadn't noticed.
That's where those self-employed and then eventually employed people come into it, the bookkeepers, because they can give you and go, here's your arrears list. And you can just look through and go, that's strange that so-and-so hasn't paid me. Can you give them a nudge? And then when it appears next month, you can be like, hang on a minute, we gave them a nudge last month and they still haven't paid. And I think maybe I need to ring them or do something about it. So you're not kind of falling behind with that.
We, because they have to get certificates for their training. If they don't pay me, they don't get their certificates. So we have a, what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for?
You've got a carrot in front of a donkey.
Yeah, because they're going, well, where's my certificates? And I go, well, once you've paid me, you'll get your certificate. And I say it to the delegates at the end of training, if I've not been paid, I'll say, as soon as I've been paid, you will get your certificates. So then they go to their boss, I've not been... we haven't got our certificates there yet.
That's a good
and
thing.
mostly people pay. And I do have in my terms and conditions that if the invoice is late, for every week that it's late, it's £25.
Yeah.
Because I've had people paying it late and it's really impacted me. Yeah. So I definitely changed that part of my policy. But I really like the idea of having that additional charge in there for moving dates.
Yeah,
if
continuously moving them. Yeah,
you can give someone a leeway of one.
Up for it as well. Exactly. Or you can't see your kids' school plays because you've booked in this work and then they cancel it and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I could have gone, but now I can't get a ticket. There's other impacts to people just moving stuff all the time. So rude. Exactly, yeah. All right. So in terms of more towards the 10-year goals, I guess that is all about be running a small, successful first aid training company and obviously trying to get the charity to grow alongside all of this as well, which I know we haven't touched on as so much because we've only got so much time. But yeah, so that the kind of 10-year goal I always say to people a lot is that people underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years and overestimate in a year. But I think if you had your 10-year goal as working on the business, not in it, and you make these changes and the rest of it, I think that's definitely achievable in a 10-year span, that you could be just completely working on it and everything's semi-automated and the rest of it. Your good nature of what you refer to as, you discount stuff and then somebody else comes in and has to police it or whatever. That is a difference between like a CEO and an MD and then like an operations manager, because they're like your force fields for you, like making too many mistakes, because people will know you and your face and the rest of it, and you're the one networking. And it's a bit like myself, I don't get too involved in the day-to-day stuff anymore. But people recognise me because I go out networking and I do all these other things, and even this podcasting stuff is self-branding for me. But those people are the ones that protect me from being like, why have you quoted that for that? Or why have you said you'll do mates rates for that one? That's a terrible idea or whatever, and stuff like that. Because you're nice inside and you want to kind of do that, and you remember the business when it was small and the rest of it and the struggle and the strife and things. But as you grow, you have to accept that those people around you will kind of, you'll delegate stuff to them, but you've employed them to do a job for a reason, and you have to kind of trust what they say when they say this isn't working out. And understand that you went through that process of doing a clockify type thing at an early stage, and then you've got some inkling into when your MD or whoever it might be, operations manager or something, says to you, you can't possibly make money out of doing this way. We're spending too much time. We need to automate that bit, and then you feel like, automation, that's not very great. It wasn't really in my original remit. Yes, but if we don't do that,
it's going to take 3 hours to do something.
It'll take a lot longer, and you have to evolve all the time. Otherwise, you slowly evaporate as a business. So
I love that. If you don't evolve, you evaporate. So
you do slowly, because you have to change with the times. Everybody does. AI will affect us all.
I'm loving AI at the moment.
AI is probably less effective of training because it's hands-on with humans, but solicitors, accountants, even some of the stuff we do here, it will be much quicker with AI, but eventually it will get to a point where the AI is actually doing quite a big job, and then people will say, I don't really need a solicitor because I can just AI that, and then I can write my neighbour a snotty letter and it's all legally compliant.
Well, no, so no more solicitors. No, we can't have that.
Well,
we love
I think
solicitors.
They'll probably end up being really specialist in some areas, I suspect, and then things like getting me off a car parking ticket probably won't be a thing anymore because you just. But there was a guy in the paper who was the first person to get off a car parking ticket using purely AI. Literally just wrote him a letter to the thing, gave him all the facts and the rest of it, used ChatGPT to do that. So
amazing.
Yeah, I know.
That's great.
No legal assistance required for that. But it won't do that person out of a job. It'll be like the self-checkout tills, I always think of. Like, somebody still has to go around and do the you're over 18, or like take the thing off the top of the wine bottle so you don't nick it or whatever. I don't know if that just says about where I live or something. So yeah, they have all of that kind of stuff, but that's still a human doing that, even though they're now operating.
You've got to have human input into it, otherwise our mental health will just go into the sea. Yeah,
but they're effectively operating 10 tills, aren't they, at once, as opposed to one 20 years ago. So. Yeah, true. Yeah.
I am really interested to see where that goes. I use AI a lot when I'm replying to emails and when I'm doing quotes. So I've been doing some big quotes recently, and I've just been using those to just set up that side of things. Certainly with the charity stuff, it's really helped me with like marketing strategy, social media strategy. I put all the ideas from my head onto the page and it comes up with something that looks a bit professional. So I'm really loving that very basic level of AI at the moment. So yes.
Good stuff. Right. I think what we'll do is we'll kind of slightly wrap it up there. But is there any questions you want? So things that might get in your way of you achieving those goals that perhaps we haven't touched upon, or anything that you particularly want to ask me?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, I'm excited to see how it all goes. I'm sort of at a place where I've learned a lot and I'm moving forward with things. I'm not saying I know everything by any chance, but I'm way more cautious than I used to be. I say I know a lot more than I used to be. I was very much a yes to everything, and it's got me into some sticky spots. So now I'm just really cautious. If I'm saying yes, I'm really scrutinising that person or that whatever it is before I say yes on something like that. So I feel like I'm in relatively calm waters where I am. But I'm interested to see if I can just push it a bit more so that I can move into a space where I'm not training 3 days a week. I'm doing a bit more on rather than in, like we've been saying. And it's just kind of knowing what that nudge is. So I'd like to try a couple of these ideas that we've been talking about today, like kind of changing the contracts that I do have, moving into that retainer space, around the other way, so twisting things around a bit more, being a bit more robust with the pricing element of the training, and stop giving mates rates to people. And we'll see how it lands. I'd love to come back in like a year's time.
Yeah,
and go,
we often say
that. Look at what's happened in the last year.
Well, we do have some repeat guests on who come on after about a year, and we always like to have people back on again, see how they're doing in a year's time. So we have actually had a couple of those happen, and people have implemented some of the stuff we've discussed, and not changed some of the stuff we discussed. And it's like, well, we started that last time, but anyway. So but all positive kind of steps forward. So
it's like an annual review. Isn't
it is a little bit, and we're looking at possibly getting some people to quiz me as well, so that would be exciting. It's
some questions for you.
Exactly, So but I think that kind of covers everything. If you haven't got anything else, so how do people find out about your first aid training? And obviously, don't forget to touch on the bra off defib. On.
Some people say bra on, defib off. That's the wrong way around.
I thought I'd said it the wrong way, and then I was like, no, you've done it correctly.
You've said it correctly. Well done. So Training Legs First Aid, traininglegsfirstaid.co.uk is my website. Have a look on there for me giving 2 fingers, putting 2 fingers up.
Yeah.
Have a look on that website. And the charity is same thing. So it's braoffdefibon.co.uk. Our hashtag is actually hashtag get your tits out for the pads.
Yeah.
So if you're on Instagram or anything like that, you can use that hashtag to access it.
I'm sure Luke will tag you and do various Instagram-y things in there for you. So, yeah. But it's been really nice having you on, Jenny. And, yeah, wish you all the best. And hopefully we'll catch up in a year, see how things look.
Lovely. And I'll see you before then.
Yeah, I will see you before then. A networking event near you. All right. Thank you.